So I want to talk really briefly as just an overview of what's happening in child care. We have clearly the state budget impasse that's directly impacting the payment of child care services to low-income families. The way it works is the State Department of Human Services contracts out and asks providers in communities like to care for young children in community-based child care programs. Those providers, by and large, are not being paid. More than 60% of those dollars come from federal sources and 40% are from general revenue fund. And most importantly, we have low-income families who are not able to accept jobs, to enroll in colleges this fall, because they cannot access child care. In addition to a budget impasse, we also have emergency rules that have been filed in the state of Illinois that is limiting and restricting access to programs so that only 10% of families approximately 90% of families who would otherwise be eligible for the program are no longer eligible for that program. So suffice to say, we have a crisis for families, we have a crisis for providers, which represents a significant economic engine for our state, and we also have a crisis in terms of our state's economy. The ripple effect in terms of child care is significant in terms of jobs created, taxes paid, services purchased in local communities, the impact is short term as well as long term. We are watching the unraveling of an entire social service infrastructure in terms of child care providers who are shuttering their doors. We have providers that are going to stop taking care of low-income families because of the state's inability and inconsistency in terms of paying for those services. And yet the expectation is there that we want our kids ready for school and we want families to go out and work and to support their. I want to not take up any more of your time because I really want to cede my time to the panel that we have before us to really get a full breadth of both the impact on the economy, the impact on providers, and the impact on families with young children who rely on care on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I will turn it over to John Rowan with Marillac St. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan.
Thank you. I'm Dr. John Rowan. I must correct the introduction. I'm not president of Marillac St. Vincent Family Services. I'm a board member, a trustee of Marillac St. Vincent's. I am vice president of Midwest Warehouse and Distribution System, headquartered in Woodridge, Illinois. I'm a former owner of Rowan Logistics Services, merged with Midwest Warehouse in 2007. I'm a former teacher in Chicago Public Schools, and I earned my PhD in education at Loyola University in Chicago. As I started a trustee with Marillac St. Vincent Family Services, I recently completed a 4-year term as board chair. Prior to that, I served as chair of the Finance and Governance Committee for 4 years. We are celebrating our centennial year as an agency, having served Chicago's poor families since 1914. I appear before you today as a member of the business community in Illinois and as a board member with fiduciary responsibility to support a mission in which I passionately believe, representing Marillac St. Vincent Family Services and the families we serve. I thank you very much for an opportunity to have a brief conversation with you this afternoon. I am confident that you are all familiar with the emergency order issued by the governor, which took effect on July 1st. I know I don't need to go into the provisions of that emergency order. What I'd like to do is describe for you some real consequences of this order, some things that are happening in real life, beyond the language of that emergency order. For low-income families and children, the order amounts to closing of the Illinois Child Care Assistance Program to working families who need child care in order to go to work or participate in education and training. Since July 1, when that order took effect, it's estimated that 2,000 low-income working families have been denied assistance, even though they meet the state's criteria of needing to work or to be on an education and training program in order to qualify. As of June 30, 2015, the day before that order took effect, were 168,000 children of approximately 90,000 low-income families in child care when their parents were at work or in school. As parents pursue their GED or higher education, or finally get that long sought-after job to better support their families, the state of Illinois, instead of supporting this activity, is in fact pushing them further into poverty by denying them a critical work support. Low-income children who we know start kindergarten less than prepared for school success will now be denied a stable, high-quality learning experience that might actually change the trajectory of their future success. 25% of preschool-aged children now in a child care program will leave that program next month because of their age and they move into a kindergarten program. Under the provisions of the executive order, those vacancies created cannot be filled because the state has closed the program to new applicants. This policy change alone will devastate working families' chances for economic survival and will quickly dismantle our state's infrastructure of service delivery that in turn grows our economy. Under the new eligibility requirements, only about 10% of current CCAP families would be eligible. It means 9 out of 10 parents applying for child care under these new guidelines will be denied. That's 17,000 of the 168,000 children now eligible. And I marvel that this executive order took effect without vote or public debate. It's beyond my comprehension because the consequences are so far-reaching. What impact is it having on service delivery on a nonprofit social service agency? When children in preschool programs cycle into kindergarten, they will not be replaced under new guidelines. This will jeopardize the financial health of nonprofit agencies that form the backbone of the service delivery system that provides the child care services and early childhood education. In Illinois, as I know you all know, Marillac St. Vincent Family Services and other similar agencies provide a service to working families that Illinois does not. We are a contract agency, we contract with the state of Illinois. Nonprofit executives are doing their very best to keep their staffs together and avoid premature discussion of potentially dire consequences that might prompt employees to leave in droves searching for other jobs. We are looking at the destruction of the state's social safety net. I suspect that I'm among the guilty here. I am blessed with a strong family, a strong network of friends. When I think about it, I have a personal safety net. If I'm in trouble, I'm going to have resources that I can call upon. There are many families in Illinois who have no such access to resources. We have no resources to call upon. Until July 1st, the income eligibility cutoff was established at 185% of the federal poverty level, or $37,167 for a family of 3. Under the new guidelines, 90% of otherwise eligible families will be denied, and for those who fall within the priority population of 50% of the federal poverty level, a single mother, hear this please, a single mother with 2 children earning $10 an hour is already ineligible if she works more than 20 hours a week. Families cannot survive under this new restrictive set of guidelines, and neither can the state's child care delivery system. Finding quality child care that is also affordable is one of the most vexing problems for the working poor. consuming nearly 40% of their paychecks. Think about all of you and your families, those of you who have young families, and the investment that you make in time and money in child care, making sure that you have the right care for your children. 40% of the low-income families' paychecks consumed by child care. Parents will be forced to decide whether they will work or stay home with their children, or to leave children with caretakers who may be less than desirable. The ranks of unemployed and homeless are likely to grow, and unemployment insurance claims are likely to increase. Parents may leave school-aged children alone at home when they go to work. This may in turn lead to increased crime and violence, more opportunity for gang recruitment, more involvement with drugs, all resulting in greater pressure on already stretched law enforcement agencies. I'm forced to ask, has all of this been considered? I can't believe it. What about the impact on society and the economy? The early care and education industry generated $2.6 billion in revenue in 2014. It enables parents to work and continue their education. The industry, consisting of programs serving children under the age of 6, supports the current workforce. 630,000 Illinois children under age 6, and that's 68% of all children in the state under age 6, have all household parents in the labor force. Working parents in Illinois earned over $124 billion in 2013. Again, as a business leader, I'm compelled to ask whether we generally thought about the ramifications of this order. So, I'm sure you're asking, or you might want to ask, what do I want? Why am I here? What we want as business leaders, business owners, nonprofit board members, let me be clear. We certainly recognize that the fiscal circumstances in Illinois are dire. And we acknowledge that creative thinking and extraordinary measures will be necessary to right the ship. We understand that these measures will require sacrifice and will result in painful choices, no question. As business leaders, nonprofit board members, and taxpayers, we want and expect our elected leaders to act urgently, responsibly, and with accountability on 3 fronts. Number 1, to rescind the July 1st emergency order and to restore CCAP eligibility guidelines in place prior to that date, facing the reality that the cycle of poverty will be broken one child, one family at a time through quality early child care education and education. Isn't this a major mission for all of us? Am I wrong? Isn't this a major mission for all of us to break the cycle of poverty? Secondly, to cooperate in a bipartisan, public, and transparent process to prepare a budget that begins to move Illinois toward long-term solvency. The ship is not going to be righted in a single year's budget. And thirdly, to discuss alternative solutions, to consider the impact of these options on all constituents with a view toward reasoned decisions resulting in shared sacrifice and pain. Shared sacrifice and pain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy Feldman.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Feldman. I'm the Executive Director of the Presbyterian Daycare in Jacksonville, Illinois. We currently employ 28.
Reach a compromise budget on May 31st, the deadline for session. And so there was some indication in that press release that some changes would be made to the child care system, specifically changing the eligibility standards was announced, but there were a number of other things added to the changes that in fact went into effect July 1st. But there was no conversation with the advocacy community other than that we had spent the better part of this legislative session in a battle to fully fund FY15 child care. As many of you will remember, the child care systems program ran out of money in January, and there was a conversation with the administration regarding the changes that came.
And so it would be fair to say that the emergency rules that were addressed by JCAR week before last were not discussed with anyone before they were proposed?
They were not.
And were they discussed after they were proposed?
They have not, other than the advocacy efforts that we put in across the state to demonstrate the impact of those changes and to file a formal complaint with the Department of Human Services on those emergency rules and ask for a public hearing on the regular meeting before they.
Was there a response to that request?
To date, we have not received it.
And so, while they ignored you on the emergency rules, which I guess is their privilege if that's what they choose to do, a request for a hearing on the permanent rules has not yet been responded to by the department?
Correct. They have had a leadership change, and so we are reaching out to the department to inquire, both through the Office of JCAR as well as the Department of Human Services, their Office of Administrative Rule, to hopefully hear of a date when those hearings will happen.
So you've been around Springfield for a while, as I have. You've been through rulemaking before. Is this an inordinate length of time to have not heard from the agency regarding your request for a hearing?
We have never had, in the many years that I have been around Springfield, had to request a hearing questioning the administrative or the emergency nature of rulemaking. So this is new territory for me.
You've been involved in the budget making process, or at least the budget advocacy process, for some time on this issue. So I know you're familiar with what I'm about to ask. Can you tell us what was in the governor's proposed FY16 budget for the line items that concern you?
There was a significant cut made. It was lump summed a little bit, but there was significant cuts made to the child care assistance program for the proposed FY16 budget. That would have made significant changes other than the changes that in fact went into play on July 1st. There was a proposal to eliminate school age care as part of the child care assistance program. The federal statute allows child care to serve children through the age of 12, so it provides for after-school care or after-school time care. And so the governor's proposal would have eliminated school age care out of the program, stopping child care at age 6. It also would have made changes to regulation around family, home-based child care providers, relative caregivers, informal caregivers. And so they were significant programmatic changes as well as budgetary changes. Ended up being different largely because my understanding is through conversations with the Department of Human Services and the Governor's Office of Management and Budget that some of those changes would put in question our federal funding. And so the administration did pull back on those changes, but clearly found other ones to promote.
Have you reviewed the budget passed by the House and Senate later to be vetoed by the governor?
Yes.
And how does that compare to the proposal that the governor put forth?
FY15 was a bit of a blip in a long line of pretty stable funding for child care, although we are increasing our quality and improving services to families. And so the FY15 budget had a significant shortfall due to a number of circumstances. And so it's always hard to look at 15 as a comparison. But the proposed governor's budget would have reduced the general revenue fund investments in child care. That would have required significant programmatic changes. The budget that was passed by the House but vetoed by the governor, while not fully funding the current FY15 expenditures.
We have all the conversations you want outside of the chamber, but I, for one, want to hear these witnesses. Please proceed.
Thank you. Infrastructure is always hard. If you were to close your door in a family store for a month for whatever reason, and then would your customers come back? I don't know. I think there's an impact on this on multiple levels. I think we have people that are losing faith in government, which makes me really sad. I think we also have providers who have committed to dedicating themselves to care for low-income children. St. Vincent, Marillac is a perfect example. They're located in Lincoln Park. When they started 114 years ago, it was a very different neighborhood. They could have 100% full fee paying parents, but they don't. They're mission driven. They care for low-income children because it is the role they play in their community. They know there's plenty of kids who could go and pay for full fee and go to private school and get the care they need without assistance. They chose the other direction. They stay committed to their mission. How many programs can stay that mission focused for how long when they're not receiving payment? When they have one child leave because they go to kindergarten and they can't fill that slot. Because at the end of the day, as John Rowan said, he has fiduciary responsibilities. This is a business at the end of the day, and they run a fine margin at the best of times. They simply cannot survive. Marillac St. Vincent is larger and has a greater history and commitment from their community. There are programs that are much smaller, that do not have access to lines of credit, and they certainly can't get it in this environment. And so when we talk about an infrastructure of care, we've had a lot of conversations in this state around making sure that state workers get paid. That's an important conversation to have. The reality is that there are thousands and thousands of people who are working in our social service infrastructure who are also aren't getting paid. And why are their jobs any less valuable? Why is the role they play on a daily basis any less valuable to our society? And why is the fact that they also support families with that paycheck any less important than folks who actually get a paycheck from the state? It is the same. We have a state's economy that relies on people going to work. And that's starting to crumble across our state in child care especially. We don't pay a lot in child care. It is inherently an underpaid profession. Kathy said people, or maybe Monique said people don't do this to get rich. Trust me, they're not getting rich. Monique works in child care and qualifies for child care assistance. There are plenty of people who are low income themselves that are working in child care because they love what they do and they're committed to it. So in the best of times, we have a challenge to pay what is one of the most important jobs in our society, at the very least, in terms of salary and compensation. So when things start to crumble, if providers aren't getting paid, parents can't rely on that access and care, they're going to start just asking. They're going to just go back to TANF. They're going to just, couch up with a mother or a sister and not be able to live independently and raise their kids. That's a good example. So it's real. The vendors that provide food service, that child care program, if nobody's there to buy that food, what happens to that food vendor? What happens to the lawn care people that take care of St. Vincent and Marillac, right? They have lawnskeepers, they have people that maintain the building, they have janitorial staff. Those people are going to get laid off. Again, the ripple effect is significant in child care, just like it would be in manufacturing business, just like it would be in a retail store. And all of that is our tax base.
Ms. Fellhauer, one question for you. So if this continues to drag on and the grades continue to be cut and the people continue to be denied these services and you have to lose some of your trained employees, how difficult will it be for you to bring them back and to build the same quality of care you provide today?
It would be very difficult. Having the Accelerate gold standard gives us, shows that we have committed to our staff that they are having the education background. With these cuts, for example, Lincoln Lane Community College has cut some of the early childhood education classes for my staff to get further their education.
I heard some of what you were saying with regard to what, I guess, the outcomes, maybe, or the consequences of making these kinds of changes for families or children involved. Can you restate some of those for me, please?
Sure. I said that the one impact of the emergency order is for low-income families and children. It really amounts to closing of the child care assistance program to working families who need child care in order to go to work, who participate in education and training. Low-income children who we know start kindergarten less than well prepared for school success will now be denied a stable, high-quality learning experience that might actually change the trajectory of their lives, their future success. preschool programs cycle into kindergarten, they will not be replaced under new guidelines. This will, in fact, jeopardize the financial health of nonprofit organizations that serve as a social safety network, as Kathy described.
Actually creating some of the negative comments, right? What you talked about, we are increased drug use, crime.
Exactly. Okay. Parents are going to be forced, and Ceci alluded to this, I think, in her response. Parents are going to be forced to decide whether they will work or stay home with their children when they face with that choice, or to leave children with caretakers who may be less than desirable in order to continue working. The ranks of unemployed and homeless are very likely to grow. And unemployment insurance plans certainly will increase. Parents may leave school-aged children alone at home when they go to work. That's a choice that they may have to make. This may in turn lead to increased crime and violence as children may be unsupervised, more opportunity for gang recruitment, more involvement with drugs, all of which I said results in greater pressure on already stretched law enforcement agencies.
Do you know if the state has an age at which it may be, for lack of a better word, illegal to leave the child at home? Anybody know? Please.
You know, the DCFS statute is a little subjective in its language, but I believe it's
13.
But again, I think it's subjective language in terms of decision, responsible decision or something. But I think it is roughly age of 13 is the general considered age.
Okay, but in this dialogue, we're talking about children that are much younger than 13 in some respects.
Correct. By law, the child care assistance program ends for children at their 13th birthday. So you can no longer access child care. The majority of children, the majority of folks that we're talking about here are really those, birth to 5.
Birth to 5. So when we talk about parents making decisions about what they do with their children, are we still talking about the same age in some respects, or?
We are. A number of times, oftentimes older children are asked to care for their younger siblings. There was a survey done a number of years ago in the city of Chicago looking at the middle school absenteeism. And the number one reason cited for middle school absenteeism was that children were told to stay at home and care for their younger siblings.
So parents will. Okay, yeah, Mr. Rowan, if I remember correctly, you kind of ended, or at least somewhat ended your comments. You said, is anybody listening? Does anybody care? I'm not quite sure the exact words you said, or, is anybody aware of the additional costs that may be associated with making these kinds of decisions? Or when you talk about increased crime, drug use, these are ultimately costs that we refer back to the state of the law, right?
That's exactly right. Just to go back to your previous question, Marillac St, and I'm sure many of the other agencies as well, also provide child care for school-aged children, after-school programs. We have a large number of children in after-school programs, so up to age 13. If those children are no longer eligible for the kind of care that are given at Marillac St. Vincent Family Services, they certainly could be left home alone to take care of little children. They certainly could be on the streets if they're not supervised.
So when we talk about, I guess, younger siblings, siblings being asked to look after younger siblings, are we also, how can I say this? Is there a situation where these children can actually run into the system? So if there's a neighbor that wanted to call DCFS and say, hey, I got young kids next door to me because their mother is working, or there's a mother's not there, or father's not there, is it possible that DCF might step in and say, we need to put these children in the system as a result of some of this?
Absolutely, and I'm sure many of you have heard over the years, there's been a number of, women who have been arrested because they left their kids in the car while they were interviewing for a job or Target. They left their kids home alone because their child care fell through and they had to and something happened, God forbid. We still see an increase of those incidents, unfortunately.
So essentially, it's possible that we are opening ourselves up to this area of problems if this happens, right?
My boss right here wanted to come, but is working to keep our doors open. As an agency who relies on significant state dollars, she would say that what these cuts are doing is paving a path for child welfare systems.
Yeah, toward the child, which probably has been doing significant cuts in the budgetary process as well. So we're increasing the number of children that we want in the system, but we certainly don't have enough resources to carry them through that. I see. And I guess my last comment to Mr. Rowan is, if I heard you correctly, sir, you alluded, that somebody cares, somebody paying attention. I can assure you that being a part of the budgetary process, when agency directors were coming before us and talking about cuts, their agencies, one question that was consistently asked, if by no one else, it was by me, was what are the costs associated, the increased costs associated with making cuts to a variety of things. And I can assure you, no agency director offered me one answer as to what that outcome was. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hammond.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Chairman, certainly I'd like to commend you for holding this hearing and focusing your attention on this extremely important problem of child care needs in the state. I wanted to ask the two fathers who are here, just from their personal experience, could you share with us what it has been like for you to have to consider what to do with your children as a result of this?
Actually, it's one of the biggest stressors.
I'm sorry, but I would love for everybody in the chambers to hear you.
I said it's actually one of the biggest stressors that I'm dealing with right now. I've had to figure out how to continue my education and work a second job. If I wasn't able to receive child care, just so I could pay for my child care. My family members all work, and I don't really have anyone to trust with my child if I was not able to receive assistance.
Difficult choice, but I probably have to live off my parents and have to, be a burden on them until I can find something to get my child watched.
I know you all are here as young parents. There are many others who are sharing the same level of stress that we're experiencing that call my office every single week that we're trying to. I visited, I've gone to a home. That person who may have called me and said, my child care provider, and this is to Ms. Kathy. Maybe 2 weeks ago, a young woman called us and said that the provider closed the doors. And so she couldn't take those children in the morning as she had been doing before to child care because there was no provider and no time to change providers as a result of the provider she had become accustomed to having to close the doors when she couldn't maintain providing the service. Can you talk a little bit about what has happened to providers as a result of this? Not just the people who couldn't find the child care, but the child care providers who wanted to provide service.
We've seen a significant change. We've seen child care centers close, smaller child care centers.
We're able to infiltrate the children in the community. Can you describe some of the communities that are served by the child care program and the element of crime that could now infiltrate some of these children between the hours of 3 and 6 that could be potentially at risk if these programs cease to exist?
I will tell you that Marillac St. Vincent Family Services is comprised of 2 sister agencies. St. Vincent Family Services, as Ceci indicated earlier, is located in Rowan, Illinois, but draws children from all over the city. If you look at the scatter map, where children come to St. Vincent's, they literally come from the entire city. Marillac, on the other hand, is located in East Garfield Park. If you're familiar with East Garfield Park or familiar with that area in Chicago, it's the west side. It's a very challenging neighborhood, to say the least. There's a very high level of poverty. There's a lot of gang activity. There's a lot of pressure on kids to get involved in criminal behavior or unhealthy behavior. So Marillac is known, and has been known over the years, as a beacon of hope. It's true. That's the logo it uses, it's a beacon of hope. And it truly is. If Marillac could no longer provide services for these children, that link to the safety net would be lost. And I'd have to say that they'd be fair game for whatever was out there.
And then for Ms.